Hello.
Hello.
Welcome again to the Canadian Bro
Bro
Show.
Show.
I'm Paul Bale.
I'm John Leister. Pauly and Johnny.
All Things Canadian by Pauly and Johnny.
How's it going, eh? Welcome back.
How's everybody doing, eh?
Thank you for all your wonderful support and your comments and your likes. We love it.
Absolutely. Really nice. And it's a holiday this weekend. It's a long weekend. It's
What is it? BC Day.
It is BC Day, and it's also Pride Festival in
There you
Vancouver
go.
as well. So it's packed.
2 for 1.
It's packed out there.
Double feature.
It really is a double. Well, it's a triple feature because you get Pauly and Johnny, the Canadian Bro Show.
Shame on me
It's okay.
for not
He'll get it.
going there.
It's only episode 9, and then tomorrow we'll do episode 10. And again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We're back at the Vancouver Library in our sound studio.
Hopefully no alarms today.
No, hopefully
No
not.
hiccups.
No, we'd like to do 2 episodes, approximately 30-35 minutes. We're going to try to keep it in that 30-35 minute range. We've been trying to in the last while providing fresh content. And because Johnny and I are film buffs, and
We're the Canadian Siskel and Ebert.
we really are the Canadian
Yes,
Siskel,
indeed.
and we could be significantly younger, of course, even though we're older. But today, this would be episode 9, we would like to do, as Johnny and I are film buffs, we both love all different types of genres.
Sure.
But
Covering the spectrum.
we'd really like to do, which is my favorite genre, and it's one of the hardest genres to do successfully because it's completely,
It's a more specific genre.
it's a very specific genre, and really at the end of the day, we're going to do on our favorite zombie films.
Run for
Yeah.
your lives.
Yeah, buddy. I'm looking forward to it. And the thing is, the big question is, what exactly is a zombie?
When there is no more room in hell, the
I
dead
love
will
that
walk
answer.
The earth.
And that's going to be on, that's excellent. That's
You
really
wanna
excellent.
start?
Yeah, I do want to start. And based on his fantastic segue comment, which leads into my very first
You're welcome.
film and my favorite zombie film of all time, specifically this particular one, is George Romero's original. His original zombie film was Night of the Living Dead in
That got
1969.
the ball rolling.
That got the ball rolling.
Right.
That was black and white, and it was really well done. It wasn't exactly graphic or gory,
Super low budget.
but it was super low budget,
Yeah,
and it
but
was
chilling.
nonetheless chilling.
It was.
I
I saw it as a kid.
me too. I was scared. I was
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 years old. I think probably I didn't see it till 5 or 6, but it was on TV, and I was like, "What is this? Black and white?"
If I don't recall correctly, there was no music. It had
Yeah.
kind of a documentary feel to it.
Yeah,
It
there.
felt like you were watching something that was real.
Well, it was, and the lighting. It was just
very stark lighting.
It was totally different than what he, did so well in all of his films. But in the first one, I'd like to talk about his 1978 masterpiece called Dawn of the Dead. And it is truly a phenomenal film. It's
Not
dated.
for the squeamish.
It is, and
Although I feel that the effects are somewhat cartoonish by
well, I was
today's
just going to get
standards.
there. Well, let me just give you an intro. His masterpiece in 1978, the original one, they had to cut the heck out of it because it was so graphic and so gory. They said, we're going to have to give you an R-rated and an X-rated. And they just didn't want to do that. But it certainly wasn't.
Most people associate X-rated movies with
Yeah.
sexually explicit content.
Well,
not
yeah, and it
violence
is
and gore.
explicitly violent
Yeah.
and graphic. But nonetheless, the first movie came out and I saw it, and it was absolutely a masterpiece, in my opinion. However, a couple years later, George Romero did the extended X-rated version and said, listen, I want to do the movie for me and for our true fans. And added, it was about 2.5 hours. And if you haven't seen it, sit back, make a huge thing of popcorn, get adjusted in any way that you want. Johnny, have a beer.
Pardon me.
Pauly?
Several. At least
It,
several.
it could be nothing, or it could be more than something.
I love the way that movie opens with the newscast
Yeah.
because you really get a feeling that the
Before we
world
get
is
there,
coming to
Johnny,
an end.
let me just finish my intro.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's funny. It's hard to finish an intro around here because,
Just
peanut
contributing.
gallery. Hello.
Hello.
Let a man get a word out. Just a paragraph. So it was legend George Romero. He was just starting out. He was broke. So he went to his Italian roots and called up legendary horror director Dario Argento. And Dario Argento financed Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he executive produced it.
Wow.
And he brought in this film score
Nice.
from an Italian group called Goblin.
It doesn't hurt to have friends with deep pockets.
Yes, very important. And that's how they got a ball rolling. And by the way, Dario Argento was quite a horror director in his own right. Certainly not at the level that George Romero was. But we wouldn't see Dawn of the Dead and a few other Day of the Dead without Dario Argento, who brought in the music, which is very cryptic. And then, of course, the other guy is the makeup and special effects supervisor, Tom Salvini, who started a career.
Right.
He did all the gore, all the exploding heads, all of the rips and bites from the neck.
The zombie with the huge head walking.
And the helicopter blade?
Yeah,
oh my God.
It's
It's just incredible. So, yeah, I would say, and that's the X-rated version. It's 2.5 hours.
And the two SWAT guys are really cool.
Oh, my.
They're so badass. Right?
Honestly, the best zombie film in the history of film, in my opinion. Johnny, who do you got?
Starting at the very top. Okay, well, I'm going to go in a slightly different direction off the top of my head. I'm going to go with 1979's Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
I love that
It's
film.
kind of a zombie movie, kind of a sci-fi movie.
You talk about the 50s version or the Donald Sutherland?
The 1970s version with Donald Sutherland and Leonard Nimoy and Jeff Goldblum. Now, Phil Kaufman, who
I forgot Leonard Nimoy was
Pardon
in
me?
that. I forgot Leonard Nimoy was in that.
That's right. Now, I wonder if you know this, Pauly. Philip Kaufman was originally going to direct the first Star Trek movie in the early 1970s, and that's how he became friends with Leonard Nimoy.
Right.
And so when he gave Leonard Nimoy the script, it's like, you might like this because this character you're playing is not so different from Mr. Spock. So basically these pods, these sort of spores from another planet land on Earth, and what they do is they create duplicates of human beings. And these duplicates have no emotion. They're essentially zombies.
They're vapid.
One of the great shock endings of all. I won't spoil it.
Oh, no.
The ending of this movie will give you nightmares that will last a lifetime.
It did.
Guaranteed.
And I've seen this movie over a dozen times.
Yeah.
And Donald Sutherland, Canadian actor.
It's very funny.
Canadian, eh?
Yeah.
Donald Sutherland. And it's got some dark humor, but it's better than the 1950s original for sure. And I think it's a classic.
It is. And the scene that made me laugh the most is when Donald Sutherland said, maybe we should call the CIA. And Jeff Goldblum was like, no, we can't call the CIA. They're pods already.
Which they were.
I watched, and the audio commentary, if you ever listen to the Blu-ray or the DVD or 4K, whatever it is now, one of the great audio commentaries of all time.
Is it?
Yeah, Phil, he's a real sci-fi fan, Phil Kaufman, and how much he loved the original, and how much he wanted this movie to be actually a continuation of the first movie. And there's actually a scene where the original actor from the original 1950s version, Kevin McCarthy, is running down the street being chased by pods.
Right.
And you could say it was the same character.
Right.
But unfortunately, they used the names of the characters from the previous movie. So it's kind of a remake, kind of a sequel at the same time, however you want to look at it. Nevertheless, a great movie, regardless of genre. Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Totally agreed. Love that movie.
To see it.
That's a great
Holds
choice.
up really well.
And again, we're trying to focus on the zombie genre. However, there are variations of zombie-like things. So as an example, after we do the zombie films, Johnny and I are going to do vampire films and then maybe werewolf films because there are distinctions.
Right.
And then there's viral films.
Mommy.
And viral films
Godzilla.
can also turn you in, not necessarily Godzilla.
No?
That's not a viral film. That's a cheap Japanese 1950s puppet film. It's terrible. But the one that we saw in the 70s, King Kong, with
Jessica Lange and Jeff Bridges,
and the very flirtatious King Kong playing with Jessica Lange's
wardrobe. Let's try and keep
wardrobe.
this family friendly.
It is. I just said he was playing with her wardrobe. I didn't say anything graphic.
What is your next zombie
My next
movie,
is, and
Pauly?
what I was trying to get to about the viral thing is that a zombie can be, anyone's interpretation could be somebody that's a zombie. Well, what is a zombie? Zombies aren't alive. Well, then how do they eat all this flesh? They have no digestive tract. So anyways, viral. If someone is somewhat alive, they can be viral.
Yeah.
They could be, and so my next movie is
Don't get bit.
And do not get bit or do not get eaten. I'm going to go with 28 Days Later.
Oh, that's on my list too.
In 2002,
Very good.
and a young Cillian Murphy, Jim, wakes up in a hospital in New Westminster in London, and the hospital is empty. and it's obviously distress. There's blood everywhere. There's no one there.
Yeah.
He's locked in his room. Somebody's locked him in.
Very gripping opening.
Very gripping.
Yeah.
And you know, basically, the thing about 28 Days Later is that there's this virus that they call the rage that has completely taken over the UK. And it's decimated millions of people, and we don't really know.
So the zombies are not really eating people in this one. They're killing
Well, they
people
are.
with their bare hands.
No, they're
Oh, they
eating.
are also,
They're,
both
well,
two
they're.
for one?
I mean,
Okay.
have you seen the movie?
Like years and years ago. But
yeah.
I remember really enjoying it. I saw it in the theater.
I've seen it 24
And
times.
the sequel was good too.
It is
28
good.
weeks later, I want to say.
Yeah, but let's just focus on 28 Days Later. So Jim wakes up from a coma and finds himself deserted, and he's on the run from zombie-like victims. So technically, it's a zombie film from the range, and for the rage. And then he stumbles on to Brendan Gleeson and a few other people, and they
Braveheart.
begin their perilous journey. It is Danny Boyle, a famous Scottish director who's done so many good movies, is a masterpiece in this. He does this really edgy with a digital camera.
Yeah.
And-
Oh, that's right. I remember every time the zombies attack, the camera starts to shake.
Oh, it's
and
incredible.
you're like, oh crap, they're coming.
the mood that it sets.
Run!
It's really incredible. And then as the movie evolves, it's a masterpiece, 10 out of 10. That's
They're
my
doing
one.
another one. They're doing 28 years later, I think is the next
Yes.
one. And Cillian Murphy's coming back.
Yes, apparently I can hardly wait.
Okay. All right. Well, my next choice, I don't know how you feel about this movie, Pauly, but my next choice is the remake of Dawn of the Dead, directed by Zack Snyder, 2004, starring Sarah Pauly, also takes place in a shopping mall. I love this movie. It's a leaner, meaner version of the original Dawn of the Dead. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's better, but I think it's a much. Oh, it's on your list too.
That was my number 3.
But a much tighter film. And I love the security guard in this movie because I'm a security guard, and so I don't want to stereotype my profession, and I have to be careful how I say this because I don't know who's going to watch this podcast. Maybe my employer. I love you, employer. But he's very full of himself, and he thinks that because he wears a uniform and he's got a sidearm and a notebook that he's a Navy SEAL, and of course he's not. He's nothing. He's just a pompous ass.
He's a moron.
But he's an imbecile. And I don't want to stereotype my industry.
Not that it's already stereotyped already.
A few bad apples, well, especially in Hollywood movies and Hollywood TV shows. But, I've worked with guys like this before, and so I really recognize his character. But I love how, spoiler warning, eventually his better side comes out, and he becomes more of an asset over just an ass.
Yeah, I mean,
so
that's
Zack
just
Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, I think, is one of the best remakes ever made.
Absolutely. That's why it was my
I'm
third.
surprised. I thought you would not like that movie.
No,
because
I
thought
love
you'd
Zack's
consider it blasphemy.
The director is Zack Snyder, and I love Zack Snyder, and he's actually mentioned in a few of my choices. And what he did was to take a masterpiece that was aged 1978 into 2000 and I believe 2004. And Zack Snyder created a brand new masterpiece,
Right.
and his extended version is far better than the theatrical release.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
Oh God, it's incredible! And they got a Sarah Pauly
Right,
is a
she's
Canadian actress. She's the lead actress in it. There's another
she's
Canadian.
Canadian,
Her
that's
husband. Her husband in that is also Canadian.
There you go.
And what a
All
great
things
film!
Canadian.
That's a good
It is.
choice.
They're both
If
good.
you haven't seen it, it's excellent.
Yeah.
And it stays loosely to the original concept, and they all end up in a mall and trying to survive.
Remember one of the opening scenes where she's driving and it's a helicopter shot,
Yeah.
and everywhere she looks, there's like a fire here and a fire there and a crashed car.
Yeah, and it was
People
really well
running.
done.
And again, you just get this feeling that the world really is coming to an end.
It's right from the get-go. It doesn't stop. That's a really great one. Of course, I chose it. So I'm going to go with my next one, which is...
Oh! You stole my thunder.
You stole
That is
mine.
on my list.
So that's why I got 15 on both of these.
Okay, I have to look at my phone now because that was my next choice.
all I'm trying to do is get a sentence out here. The next one is I Am Legend with Will Smith, and I absolutely fell in love. Will Smith is Robert Neville. He's a scientist, a virulist scientist, and he studies viral contagions. And as it turns out, we don't really know what happened. The opening scene is another helicopter shot or a zone shot of going across the Brooklyn Bridge and seeing complete devastation. There's no one moving. The only things moving are lions and deer and the occasional bird. And that's it. And that's what we started. And I Am Legend is, again, a viral. They look like zombies, but they're ex-humans. and it is an absolutely enthralling movie. And the first one I saw, I have to make an honorable mention to the original movie
That's
with
the one
Charlton
that's
Heston
Yes.
back
One
in
of the great movies of the
1971 called
Yeah.
Omega Man.
Oh, yeah.
And this is I Am Legend is a take on Omega Man.
Right.
And you have to see Omega Man
Yeah.
because it is dated significantly.
It's
But it
really
is
badass.
fantastic to this day. And back in the day, Charlton Heston was the #1 actor
Yeah.
in the world at that time. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So I Am Legend, and by the way, they're filming I Am Legend 2.
I've heard that.
And it's
I'm
coming out,
legendary.
and Will Smith, because the director on the alternative cut put a couple of alternative endings.
Right.
And one of them they're going to follow.
Oh,
and
I
that is where he leaves them
Yeah.
and he bolts to find out more about the virus.
Okay.
And
I also watched the DVD making of, and apparently only Will Smith was allowed to pet the dog on set. So the dog, him and the dog had a really special
yeah, it was
bond.
probably Will Smith. He's a little he's a little bit controlling.
I want to talk a little bit more about the Omega Man because it's also on my list. Now, it's based on a short story by Richard Matheson, one of the great science fiction authors of all time, who wrote many episodes of The Twilight Zone back in the day. He wrote a novel called The Last Man on Earth, which was a movie with Vincent Price.
Fantastic.
So that's where the all got started. And then The Omega Man was made in the early 1970s, one of the great film scores of all time. And it opens with Charlton Heston driving around through the streets of New York City. It's just him. He's quote-unquote the last man on Earth, at least at that point.
Like the opening of I Am Legend.
And he hears the payphones ringing. Millennials, there was this thing back in the day before cell phones called a payphone. Okay, there were these phones, and you had to put a quarter in or a dime to call somebody. And all the phones started ringing.
Yeah.
But it's just in his mind because he's so desperate to connect with another person.
He's lonely.
And Anthony Zerbe, who's the villain in that movie,
Yeah.
and you see him, again, like Leonard Nimoy in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, you see him before the virus strikes, and you see his personality doesn't change very much.
No.
He's kind of the same guy, which
Still
I love.
Still
I
has
love that.
white hair, still blind,
that
and
basically-
still evil.
Yeah, that some people are evil even before stuff happens.
Yeah, that's a great. It's a great mention, and just again dealing with Johnny, having the wealth of knowledge that we have.
And the music from that movie,
It's
really
haunting.
sticks in your mind.
It's a really good. So if you haven't seen either one of them, check it out. My next one is one that Johnny's probably never heard of, and a lot of people haven't because it's from France. And I've probably seen a couple hundred zombie films in my life. Most of them are crap. This is the best zombie film from France. And another one of my picks is the second best zombie film from France. A lot of people don't know that France, they make incredible cinema, film, and television. They've got so much talent. Just ask them. They'll be
Jean de
happy.
Florette. Do you know that movie?
Yeah, yeah.
I know of the spring.
But my choice of the best French zombie film in 2010 is called La Horde.
Okay, I don't know that one.
The
You got me.
Horde. So the story of the Horde is no one knows there's a zombie apocalypse that is actually happening. And the zombie apocalypse is more of a viral thing, but we don't know that. This is in the beginning. So it starts off with a cop that gets whacked by some gangsters that are living in a council. In the UK, they all live in these towers. They're called councils. And they're like the dregs of society. They're like welfare state councils, very poor people, working class people. And this has been taken over by these drug dealing gangsters who have taken over the building.
Okay.
And one of the cops that's trying to figure out where these guys are and what they're running ends up getting whacked. And all of his police team say, that's not happening. We're going to do something about that. And they end up invading the building as the zombie apocalypse
I
unfolds.
see. So does it all take place in the building?
Pretty much.
Like The Raid? You ever see the movie The
Yeah.
Raid?
Oh, Raid
Yeah.
1 and 2.
Okay.
That's not on the list, though.
No.
We aren't talking about that.
Martial arts movie. We'll
This
do that
this
later,
is
later topic.
from the beginning
So how
to
do the
the
zombies
end.
fit into it?
Well, the zombies, they don't know, but they're coming, and people
I
don't
see.
know what these are.
So
There's,
do the cops and the gangsters team up to fight the zombies? Spoiler warning?
I'm not going to answer that question.
I'm guessing yes.
You have to go and watch it. This
Okay.
is not. I don't talk
sounds
about
good.
these things to tell you the entire movie. I just tell you that if you have the time
just
and you're
guessing.
interested in the genre, watch this movie. It is unmitigated gore, violence, and
Yeah.
flesh and blood and drugs and
Don't eat
guns.
before watching.
It's incredible. I love it. I've seen it a dozen. I've seen all the movies I like. I've seen over a dozen times.
We're both
2010,
movie fanatics,
The
that's for
Horde,
sure.
Le Horde.
Le Horde.
It is incredible.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Okay, well, Pauly, my next choice is Evil Dead. Written and directed by Sam Raimi at 19. He
Not
was
zombies, not vampires, but a viral demon.
Right. And so Sam Raimi, he just knocked on doors. Like, he went to his dentist and his doctor. He said, hey, I want to make a movie. And people actually gave him money. And the scenes where, like, the camera's running.
Maybe you should try that.
Yeah, maybe, if I didn't have to work my job. I think it's something more of like a young person would do. But he actually attached the camera.
If I was loaded, I would hire Johnny as a personal assistant just to get him out of his job.
So Evil Dead is about 4 young people. They isolate themselves from the rest of humanity on this island, which is always a smart thing to do. And they find this book called the Necronomicon, I want to say. I probably should have done a little bit more homework. And they open the book, and it basically unleashes all of these demons.
It's like the Devil's Bible.
Yeah, exactly. And it possesses the young people. And the only one remaining left is Ash, played by the great Bruce Campbell, one of the funniest actors of all time.
Yeah.
And they made a sequel, Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn, which is even more like over the top. His hand winds up getting possessed by one of these demons. So he's actually like hitting himself. He's actually trying to kill himself with his hand. And then he chops off his hand and he attaches a chainsaw. And he winds up spending the rest of the movie fighting these demons with the chainsaw.
Yeah.
And then they did another one, Army of Darkness, where he winds up...
They've done an entire television series with eight seasons.
Sam Raimi directed the first 2 episodes. I actually watched them on Netflix.
I did
They're
too.
really good.
I did too.
And then there's been a couple of remakes. But that original Evil Dead, I mean, just what
Classic.
a great achievement, because made on just a bunch of kids, young, like teenagers pretty much, got together and said, hey, we want to make a movie. And they did it. And it's one of the all-time horror classics.
Sam Raimi, the smartest thing he did was cast Bruce Campbell. He is, you can't replace him. The guy is...
He's an icon.
He's classic.
He's got the squarest
His
jaw.
comic timing, his look, his eyes, everything. It's fantastic.
He was very athletic. He actually did that stunt where he grabs himself by the shirt and he does like a forward somersault and then lands on his feet. You see it all done in one shot.
In college, he was a football, basketball, baseball player, big athlete. He's
I didn't know that.
he's about 6'4". And
he shows up in all of Sam Raimi's movies.
Yeah,
He's in all the
Sam loves
Spider-Man
him.
movies.
That's a great one. If you haven't seen that, check that out. My next one is another one that's obscure. A lot of people don't know about it, and it's European. It's from the UK. It's UK and British, and I'm not really sure. It's very difficult to find because for some reason they don't give it to any of the streaming.
Oh.
This one's called Overlord.
Don't know that one.
And Overlord was done in 2018. A lot of people don't. I've seen this at least a dozen times. And it's based in the first day of D-Day in the Second World War.
Oh, I have heard of this movie.
And this American brigade or infantry, they're paratrooping into D-Day. And of course, if you know anything about D-Day, the parachute drops weren't exactly succinct and concise. They were ending up everywhere. As it turns out, this African-American actor, he's been in a bunch of stuff recently. I think this is one of his earliest films. I can't remember his name, but he's really good in it. And it's against type on so many different ways. And he parachutes in and ends up behind enemy lines with Nazis. So it's a German Nazi zombie film on the first day of D-Day. And it is crazy good. I absolutely love it. I'll just give you a little blurb. On the eve of D-Day, American paratroopers drop behind enemy lines to penetrate the walls of a fortified church and destroy a radio transmitter. As the soldiers approach their target, they soon realize that there's something very odd going on in this Nazi-occupied village than simple military presence.
You should do trailers. You should be like that guy who does the trailer voiceovers, right?
That's a little bit of my
Only in
acting.
theaters. Overlord.
I did it.
Did they do a part 2?
No, they haven't. And I don't know where it is, but if you can find it, fantastic.
Okay.
Johnny, what do you got?
Okay, I'm going to go with a movie that I know is not one of your favorites, Pauly, so I apologize in advance.
It's not about
I'm
me.
going to go with Return of the Living Dead, 1988. I love this movie. I saw it so many times in the theater back in the day, and it's sort of kind of a sequel to the original Night of the Living Dead, but James Karen is so funny in this movie. And what I love about this zombie movie is the way the characters react. Like I find in a lot of horror movies, the characters don't really panic that much. These characters really lose their minds when they're attacked by the zombies. Like their reaction to what's going on is so truthful. And so it's a darkly comic film, and it has a great apocalyptic ending. So that's my choice, Return of the Living Dead, and not one of your favorites.
No.
Dan O'Bannon directed it, who wrote Alien.
Yeah.
He wrote the first
No,
Alien.
I've seen, like I say, I've seen every zombie film, and I was very disappointed by this. And there was another attempt, a different director, a different attempt that was equally as bad. There was also another one, the third one, that was better. But I appreciate the genre. I appreciate the attempt. I appreciate a different take on things.
Yeah.
But again, I'm kind of like old school zombie. And that's what I want.
I think that was the first zombie movie where they actually ran instead of shuffled.
No, and we can talk about that if you really want to go back into it. But that's an interesting comment because that really changed the dynamics of a true zombie genre.
Yeah.
Where because we know in 1969 they were all slow and they didn't have
so many of them.
food and they were so tired and
they were fish in a barrel.
They didn't work out.
No.
They obviously
They were couch potato zombies.
They haven't eaten, so their blood sugar levels are really low, and they have no blood, and they're starving, and they have no intestinal tract. Yeah, no, not really. You want to kill them. When I saw zombie films, I was like, how many creative ways can you kill a zombie? I mean,
it's usually a bullet in the head.
This mic, but if you don't have a gun, this mic boom, I could kill a zombie with the mic boom.
Okay.
No problem.
That's confidence.
Yeah, well, no, because I want to.
Look out, zombies.
I've always wanted
Pauly.
to. Anyways, the next one is going back to Zack Snyder once again. He just tried to do the second part of the Dawn of the Dead that Johnny mentioned in 2004, where he did just a phenomenal rendition of the original George Romero in the mall and everything. This one is called Army of the Dead. That was done in 2021. It was just done a couple years ago. And Dave Battista, and essentially a zombie apocalypse has taken over the world. And they want to steal $200 million of gold bullion in Vegas that's been overrun by zombies in one of the, so they've got to break in. And so Vegas was covered by a fake wall to keep everyone in.
Oh, like Escape from New York.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is, I was almost going to choose that, but it's not science fiction, really.
Yeah.
It's more
Well, sort of, kind of.
action. Yeah, it's good. I love Kurt Russell.
It's
But
in the future. Well,
Army of the Dead is, Zack Snyder pulled it off, and
Now, is there a link between that movie and the other Dawn of the Dead, or is it a separate?
No, it's a separate. However, that's a good question. It does tie in to a couple of the characters in Army of the Dead are also in a prequel that's about thievery called The Vault.
Don't know it.
And then another...
Just a short film for YouTube?
Well, it's just a couple of the characters. The German character in Army of the Dead is kind of this goofball.
Okay.
And Zack Snyder and him and his production company let him direct the thief thing. So the theft, he's a thief, a professional thief. But anyways, it all sort of ties in, but I really enjoyed that. So who's your next?
That's it. I'm done. That's my list. Short
well,
list.
then I'm going to keep on going because I'm the zombie specialist. The next one I'm going to go
Paul's
with...
more of a zombie fan than I am.
I'm just a film fan, but I love zombie movies, especially good ones, and this one's good. This is a follow-up from 28 Days Later, which Johnny did mention briefly, and it's 28 Weeks Later with the legendary Robert Carlyle, one of my favorite actors. He's absolutely mad. I love him. And this is 6 months. I'll give you a little just, if you haven't seen it. 6 months after the original epidemic, the rage virus has all but annihilated the population of the British Isles. Nonetheless, the U.S. Army declares the danger past and the American soldiers arrive to restore order and begin reconstitute. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. Refugees return to British soil. Not a good idea. But one of them carries a deadly secret. Ooh, only one. And the virus is not gone. Big surprise. And even more dangerous than before. It is fantastic.
Now, what is it that makes it more dangerous?
Well, it's just a zombie film. And there's hordes, like millions of zombies.
Yeah.
And
I've seen this movie. I don't remember it, but I do remember enjoying it.
The
I
opening
enjoyed it as
scene.
much as the
The
first
opening
one.
scene is Robert Carlyle with his wife and his children, and they're in a farmhouse.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the zombie apocalypse breaks. It's on the news, and they attack the house that they're in. They eventually break in, and him and his wife and child get separated.
Oh, okay.
I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to ruin the whole theme of the story, but it's fantastic, and it's different than the 28 Days Later. It's 28 weeks later,
Was
as
it
Johnny
also
mentioned
directed
earlier.
by Danny Boyle?
No.
Oh, okay.
And this is Fernandez, who does Juan Carlos, who also does some Rec movies, which is zombie genre, which I'll mention later. And he also did another sort of darker film that I'll mention later as well.
Okay.
But fantastic. And the next one I'll do is Train to Busan,
Is it from Korea?
Korea,
Okay.
2016. It is really well done. I love Korean films. I love all kinds of films, but I love to give them an opportunity to see what they can do. This was the first of two parts. The second one wasn't as good. The first one I've seen many times, and it's a man,
on a train, right?
Gong Yu. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not a big fan of train films, but his estranged daughter and other passengers become trapped in a speeding train during a zombie outbreak. We'll just leave it at that.
Don't you hate it when that happens? It's so inconvenient.
I've never experienced that, but
One of life's little hiccups.
if I didn't have a machete, a 9mm, a shotgun, and a submachine gun,
Don't
I'd
leave
be
home
upset.
without it.
I'd be upset because
Preparation is everything.
the key. And if you're gonna bug out, make sure you get a bug out bag and lots of weapons. The next one is the second best French zombie film that I really enjoyed.
Wow, your choices are really
All over the place.
arcane. Yeah.
It's called, I love the title, The Night Eats the World.
That is a scary title.
And it's 2018. And again, I mentioned the second best French. Let me give you a little thing. After waking up in an apartment, his wannabe girlfriend's apartment, they live in the same building. He likes her. She doesn't even give him the time of day. She has a huge party. He comes home. He's kind of a dork, kind of a loner. Loves her, but she's too busy because she's a social butterfly and it's her party. So he ends up falling asleep, as one does. And then Sam wakes up. Sam, he's French. It's probably Francois, but whatever. Comes face to face with his new reality. An army of zombies have invaded the streets of Paris. Ooh.
That sucks.
It really does. And he is one of the lone survivors, petrified with fear. Although I wouldn't say petrified yet because in the
Not a
beginning,
Navy SEAL?
He has no idea. Right.
Just an everyman?
He barricades himself inside the building to survive, and he wonders how long he can survive. It's a fantastic character journey. It's really interesting how it all happens. It's not so graphic and gory. It's more character building.
Sounds
But
good.
it's really good. I do recommend.
Never heard of that one.
I do recommend it. Going into the next one, we're going to go from France to Spain. And this one's called Rec 1, REC 1. They did 5. 5 is terrible, 4 is okay, 1, 2, and 3 are pretty good. 1 is the best.
Is REC an acronym?
It is. Well, it's Rec is record, the record button.
Gotcha.
So it's Rec 1 in 2007, a Spanish zombie horror. Late night television host Angela, not exactly a Spanish name, right? And her cinematographer are following the fire service on a call to an apartment building because they want to do some live footage of whatever's unfolding. But the Spanish police seal off the building, but not telling anyone why. And an old woman is infected by a virus which gives her inhuman strength, which is very similar to the opening scene of George Romero's 1978, where they go into a building that's infected with a whole bunch of zombies. The opening,
right.
you saw, it's just unbelievable. Anyways, Rec was so well done. I had to watch all 5 of them. The 5th one is terrible. I didn't get through any of it, but it was
Do you
a
see
really
the same characters in each movie?
Pretty much, but
oh,
most
that's
of them die,
Oh.
so they bring in
Spoiler
new
warning.
ones. But in the first one, Rec 1 and 2 are the best, and there are a couple of survivors from Rec 1 that go into Rec 2, but for the most part, the others, everybody's dead. They all die. They do a different thing, but really good. That's awesome. Then I'm going to go back to America. Johnny,
America.
we got 35 minutes. I'll bang through these. I'm going to go to Zombieland. In
Woody
2009, Woody Harrelson.
Harrelson. Haven't seen it.
And after a virus turns most people into zombies, the world's surviving humans remain locked in an ongoing battle against the hungry undead. 4 survivors: Tallahassee, Woody, as Johnny mentioned, I love Woody, and his cohorts, Jesse Eisenberg and Emma Stone and Abigail Breslin, survivor rules. Following the survival rules and a zombie killing strategies.
It's more comedic, that one, right?
It's a little bit of comedy, yeah. And it's pretty good. And then, of course, you have to mention Zombieland 2, which took about 8 years after the first one. I don't know why it took so long. Yeah.
They made another one?
They did, and it's not bad.
Yeah.
Zombieland first one's good. Next one, I'm going to Norway, Scandinavian countries, and it's fantastic. It's about zombies in Second World War in Norwegian. And it's called Dead Snow. And it is, they did a follow-up on it too. It is hilarious. Kind of a comedy. It's really gory.
Okay.
And if you'd like to see dead Nazi zombies get wiped out, wasted, and whacked.
Who doesn't want to see that?
Right? That's why I saw
very
it.
therapeutic, I think.
Very much so. It is hilarious. It's funny. It's dark. It's gory. It's graphic. It's just a fresh take on it. And it's nice to see
Kind of
something.
like Shaun of the Dead, which we talked about in a previous podcast.
But Shaun of the Dead is, I was going to put it in here, but I already mentioned it. It's more of a comedy, and I really want to stick to, a little bit more serious. The next one, and my second last, Planet Terror.
Part of Grindhouse.
2007. It's just a brilliant Robert Rodriguez.
A real homage to the 70s.
80s, 90s.
The film's all scratched up.
It's phenomenal. It's the best of the trilogy, I think, that they did collectively.
Well, it was Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez teamed up, and they made a movie called Grindhouse, which was a homage to, again, super low-budget genre films of the 1970s.
Wasn't as good.
And a lot of people didn't understand. A lot of the younger people didn't understand. No. There's a scene in Planet Terror where the movie jumps ahead.
Yeah.
Because movies back in the day, they only had one copy.
Yeah.
Then it would go around from theater to theater. So the film would get damaged. So when we were kids and we'd watch movies in the theater, remember the scratches on the screen and again the jump
before
cuts?
The restricted scene, all that, it was just bad quality.
And so they replicated that. And so only people of my generation would really understand that reference. But I love Planet Terror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the type of film that going back in the day when Johnny and I used to go to the Coronet on Granville to see a triplex for $2.50, grab a huge thing of popcorn and bring in snacks. I'd sit there for 7 hours. That's the type of movie it would be, and that's what Tarantino tried to do, is copy that, emulate sort of that vibe. The next one going into after Planet Terror, which
and she's got the gun on her leg.
Yeah.
Right.
They hurt on her tibia. So it got bit off. So they put a 50 cal. They put a 50 cal onto her right thigh.
And that was Rose McGowan.
Rose McGowan, yeah, she was great.
And Michael Biehn was in that movie.
Yeah,
Terminator.
Everyone loves him. And the other guy that Rodriguez loves is like Michael Biehn. That's a copy. But the last one's really.
John Johnson's in that too.
Yeah,
Miami Vice.
Yeah. The guy that doesn't age. John Johnson's like 75, and he still looks the same as he was when he was Miami Vice. It's incredible. The next one is a lot of people don't know because it's a little bit esoteric and it's a different take. It's called The Girl with All the Gifts, and it's in 2016. And I'll just give you a little blurb. One of the several children only children for some reason, immune to the mutated fungal disease that has eradicated free will and turned the rest of humanity into cannibalistic zombies. Ooh,
sounds horrible.
I like that. That's awesome. And the gifted young girl escapes the safety of a special school and helps guide mankind's survival. She is a zombie, and every time she's around blood, it smells it or smells a human being. As close as I am to Johnny, I could smell his blood. She just want to bite into him. But she's practicing unbelievable restraint. So
does she drink animal blood to kind of.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
That dude is freaking smart. I hadn't even seen the movie, and he's already calling it.
I've seen a million other movies.
Oh my God, I know. Anyway, so
that's our zombie episode.
that's 40
Hope
minutes.
You enjoyed it.
40 minutes of the Canadian Bro Show. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for watching.
Johnny and I love film. We're going to be doing
do.
a lot. We just want to pump out really interesting stuff, and if you like it, that's great. Please comment. Please like.
And give us ideas for topics.
Yeah,
and share
give
your
us
story with
ITVs,
too.
and if
We're
you
interested.
enjoy our content, come back and like and subscribe.
Tell your friends.
And tell your friends.
Spread the word.
And if you're tired of watching TV, you don't want to go anywhere, and you want something that's not edited, no commercials, not yet, anyways.
Raw.
Just raw, baby.
Unfettered.
Unmitigated, graphic, zombie raw.
There you go.
Yeah, baby.
In your face.
We love
In
you.
a good way. We love you. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you the
This
next
is Pauly,
one. This is Johnny.
and you've been watching The Canadian Bro Show.
All things Canadian with
Hey.
Pauly and Johnny.
Cheers.
Paul Bale,
John
Johnny
Leister.
Lester.
Living legends
See you next
in our own
time.
minds.
Love you.
Cheers.
Peace.
Pun. The pun. The pun.